keep going. I'm here.
Great. So good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Trails Committee meeting on November 9th, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. and I'll do a roll call attendance. When I call your name, just say you're here. Satyendra Sharma.
Yes.
Tom McCoolier.
Yes.
Kat McKee. Yes. And Isabel Murphy.
Here. Yes.
Great. Okay, so there's a couple of people in the attendees. Let me just see. Isabella is there, so I'm going to promote her to panelist. And Tim Litt is also an attendee. Tim, let us know if you would like to come over and chat when you want to contribute. And can I ask someone to help me pay attention to chat so that we're getting actually, did they change chat to Q&A?
Yeah, so I don't
so.
see chat.
Yeah. Same
Right,
here.
so it used to be called chat, right? Now it's Q&A and it looks different.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's great. Now we know. Okay, so first order of business is Troop 92, the Eagle Scout update. We do not have an update. I know Nick was working to schedule a time with the surveyor, Odone Surveying, and I don't have an update as to where he is with that, but we will know next time. I do think that we might be closing a window of opportunity to schedule the AMC BCT volunteers to help us do the trail workshop. They were closing down activities really in October and said they might be able to do one for us. I'll continue to reach out to Nick and see if that is something we can schedule. If it is not, then I think we can just do what we know to do. I can very basic workshop for the scouts, and there's not a lot of technical work that needs to be done, or we'll make it so that there's not a lot of technical work, and whatever technical work needs to be done, if we need to do some trail improvements later, we can do that. So any questions on that project? Okay. Next is approve the minutes. So I circulated, thank you Sati for drafting those, the 9:14 minutes. I did not have time to do the 10:05 minutes. The 9:14 meeting was longer. We had a larger discussion. So I took some time just to make sure that, and it was involving some complicated open meeting law information. So I wanted to make sure we took some time to get that captured as we needed to. So do you guys want me to pull that up if you've not had a chance to review it?
Would you mind? Because I have not had a chance.
Of course. So I'm going to share my screen, which is okay. Now I just need, so you guys might be seeing a proposed.
Yeah, that's something different. That's not the minutes.
That's okay. I'm on the right screen, so I'm going to be pulling them up now. Do you see the minutes now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's take a few minutes to look through these. I see an edit here. I'm going to do it live, which is committee to reach out to abutters to inform them about the project.
Yeah, so third bullet on point 4, primary issue for those opposed. Does it open up opportunity?
Do you want more
That's
clarity?
resolved, right? Yeah,
Do you
that was
want-
resolved.
Open up. So do you want more clarity about what the issue is of those opposed to the addition of associate members? Is that what you think would make it more clear?
No, I think that because in conversation that was resolved, right?
Primary issue for those opposed is to open up opportunity for open meeting law issue, and does it set a precedent? Not quite. It's still a standing question.
Okay. Okay,
I'm going to scroll down.
yeah.
Hey, Kat, when did we have the meeting with the Conservation Commission? Was that after this minutes?
Yes, it was in early October.
Okay, that's all right. That I would just refresh my memory.
I think it was October, right? It was-
Yeah.
Yeah, like October 7th,
Yeah.
maybe. So that would be reflected. We haven't talked about it. I have
Hey,
to-
Kat, either
Yeah.
can I drive by or you drop off on no later than Saturday, because I'm
Yeah.
going to get rid of the fishing line waste.
Yes, I'm keeping hostage your puppy's food storage container.
I know they already lost like 40 pounds.
Oh,
Okay, so how are we? I'm going to scroll down a little bit and then we're at the end. I'm going to say fishing line. And
okay.
so when someone makes a motion, please make a motion to move the minutes as amended.
Mm-hmm.
So be it.
Okay.
I'd like to second that.
All right, so Tom. Isabel. Okay, so roll call, please say agree, yes or no to agree when I call your name. Satyendra Sharma?
Yes.
Okay, and Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
Isabel Murphy,
Yes.
Isabella Bogdansky.
Yes. Yeah, you got my last name right.
Good. I'm always going to do that for, sorry.
That's fine.
And Kat McKee. Okay, great. So minutes approved. Thank you guys for that. Heritage Day recap. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see. Oh, we have an attendee and Will Warren is, I'm going to promote him to panelist and he wants to say something. Will, we should be seeing you soon. Good evening, Will.
You're on mute.
Here we go.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Were you just raising your hand to come in?
Yes, I was.
Okay, great. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so Heritage Day recap. I thought, quick summary, I thought it went really well. I'll let Sati say what he thought maybe of the day. He was there all day with me. Thank you.
Oh, you want me to say something? Yeah. So the idea that Kat had, that was a brilliant idea to display the, fake poop that attracted many people, and then they, just to see what exactly it is, and then we every time somebody visited, we could kind of educate them, show them the DCR flyers, their education material, and people are really interested. And then there were a lot of people who were interested in signing up for the mailing list, and even some people also wanted to help us, for the trails work. So that was very good. I mean, that actually won the day, the the fake poop, because it was very educational. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sati. and thanks for your help that day. It was definitely, I can see where there were a lot of people coming up. So our attention was often split between trying to attend too. So it's definitely helpful to have multiple people at a booth. I don't know that one person could successfully do it without feeling exhausted by the end of the day. But so the dog waste campaign, so this was in a way we talked about the previous meeting. This was a kind of a kickoff for our dog waste campaign educational program that's related to the Choate Fund Grant and the Stewardship Committee. And so we had a big poster with, we borrowed some information from DCR. We printed some brochures that they have on dog waste that's specific to Southborough. And we highlighted some of the important points on the poster. And then underneath it, we had a lot of different doggy bags filled with sand that, looked like doggy bag poop. And then we had fake poop. And what Sati was referring to, some of the fake poop was really very interesting to touch. And so we got a lot of kids interested in it. And so we did always clarify that you aren't supposed to touch real poop, but this poop you can touch. And it was just fun and fascinating. And a lot of times the kids would share, oh, my mommy has a dog and she always picks up her poop. And so we could have a dialogue about why it's important to pick up after your puppies. And it was an interesting perspective that a lot of the kids were interested in it because it was fun, but they were getting the message too. Now, whether they retained the message is another question. But I thought it went really well. And we had a lot of conversations with adults about it. And it seemed to, be a good effort. So that was that. And so our next steps with the dog waste campaign, and we're taking a little bit of a different schedule per the stewardship committee. Most recently, we decided to, now that we're in fall, we're going to focus our attention on the design of the signs, what we want the signs to look like, and some of that information, because we're also working with Breakneck Hill and come up with our schedule for a fall kickoff. A spring kickoff rather, because this is an okay time, but as we get cooler, I think it's going to be more difficult for people to, and they're still walking their dogs, but we might have a bigger impact in the spring. And then after all the snow thaws, I don't know if you guys, dog walkers, recognize after the snow thaws, over the winter time, people really haven't picked up, and there's a lot of remaining, evidence. So that might be a good time to highlight, how this happens and why it's important. So that was good. And then we, like Sati said, we got a lot of good signups for our distribution list. Some were volunteers interested in helping, and it went well. So and we saw Tom popped by and with his pooches, and so appreciate everyone's planning time.
And they did volunteer to give you a deposit, but I just want to put that on the record, but I said no.
We had enough poop bags at our display. But we were able to print off. So a lot of the stuff that we had printed, I did some laminating because I have a fabulous laminator now. And so that stuff can be reused. So the lamination, we highlighted all of the Scout projects from the beginning of time, 2015, I think is the earliest, through now. And we had those displayed in the tent, as well as the new projects. And so those can be reused each year. So the investment that went into Thank You Recreation for sponsoring our table, and for agreeing to pay for the printing, and for doing some of the printing themselves, that will be used each year. So it wasn't just a one and done. It's going to be, we have a nice larger size map of the Burroughs Loop laminated now, that we can use each year, because before we had a paper copy that it gets updated continuously, but the paper copies can be used every couple of years, but after a while it's, they wear down. So this way, this will more sustainable. So I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, great. Okay, next hot topic, the Trails Committee charter change. So since our last meeting in early October, we met with the Board of Selectmen, was it last week? Wednesday. We provided,
Select board?
sorry, thank you, select board. I've been using it in writing, but I'm still converting it in my brain. Thank you for always reminding me. And I'm really glad they did that. I know a lot of other communities have done that too, so it's a good thing. So we met last week and we provided them with more information, more research about, we contacted some of the communities that had been using associate members to understand if there were any specific issues they've run into related to open meeting law, related to just the functionality of the structure. And the two communities I connected with was Foxborough and Ashland. And Foxborough was a dead end. They only use the associate members for regulatory boards. That's dictated by bylaws. So they were using it in a different way. Ashland, however, was a jackpot. They use associate members, an associate member on their town forest committee. So very similar to Trails Committee. So when I spoke with the executive assistant to the board who had all this information, she literally regurgitated the bullets that we were using without knowing that we were using them. She's like, you know, it's a great way to get people associated with the committee that might not have time for the full commitment. And then if there's any transition of committee members, they're already up to speed. It's a great opportunity to get more people involved in town. It's also a great opportunity to have more hands on deck for the trails work that needs to get done. So it was nice to hear that had been working for Ashland. And she said that there have, you know, no reported issues, nothing negative. So that was good. And our meeting, so we had a couple of hours before Trails came up. So I did, while that was happening, we do have some resistance to the change. And so Mr. Hegarty, the town clerk, is against the change. He had mentioned during public comment that he doesn't think it's a good idea, that it opens the door to open meeting law violations, even if it's not just for trails, it sets a precedent for other committees, commissions, and boards. So I had an opportunity to do some research, and while I was waiting, and found 12 other towns in Massachusetts, and it doesn't stop there, but it was just, you know, a quick and dirty additional, some additional work to
Sorry,
see.
Kat, could you give me a little bit more about that? How does it cause problems for open meeting laws?
So it's the concern, as I understand it, is that it may, and there was a couple of select board that are also concerned about the open meeting law, not so much with trails specifically, but as it relates to other boards, commissions, and committees, that if they're not required, and this is a conversation we had during our last meeting, which I now have more clarity on, that because the associate members are non-voting, they don't contribute to quorum. And this, now I'm clearer on this. After I listened to the last meeting, I understand where I was confused. So Tim, thank you for your clarity during that meeting. Now I understand exactly where I was confused. So because they are non-voting members, they don't contribute to quorum, and therefore open meeting law is related to quorum, voting members. So technically a non-voting member is not required to abide by open meeting law because they're non-voting. So open meeting law doesn't apply to them, right? Specifically under the law. And so you guys this came up during our conversation, right? And I was like, no, but it does in this case, we want it to, and I really do want it to. So we're gonna write it in there so it does in a way, but technically by the letter of the law, you know, an associate member is not required to, like, because they don't help meet quorum. That's an open meeting law is about, don't have a quorum, deliberate outside of a public meeting. Does that make sense?
So you're saying if we wrote in a line basic saying that associate members will follow open meeting law?
Yeah,
right?
so that's jumping. Yes, so I'm going to jump to that in a few minutes, but I want to give us a little bit No, don't apologize, because that's exactly what I'm proposing we do, because I now understand, okay, I see the point, right? I see where if they're not required to abide by open meeting law, then can deliberation potentially happen? So if that's the case, then how do we prevent that from happening? So the concern was, and we were compared to EDC. Well, what if EDC wants to do this? And, Trails has set a precedent accordingly. So part of the discussion was, we're not setting a precedent. We are moving, we're trying to do this, and a precedent isn't set unless, the Board of Selectmen has complete authority in this case. So if they don't want it to happen to other boards, commissions, and commissions, then that can be controlled. But having one go first, I think that's always the concern. We've heard that on many levels on different topics when it comes to precedent setting. So that was one thing. So I tried to distinguish during our conversation that we're not EDC. We don't have a $40,000 budget. We don't have control or influence like EDC, and our objectives are completely different than EDC. So it's not completely comparing apples to apples with what we're trying to accomplish. However, I hear the concern and we'd like to address it, which is what we're trying to do. So I did share with the committee that there's lots of other communities, 12 other that I found just in short order, that are doing this. So we're not trying to do something new that hasn't been done successfully by other towns. Other towns are using it for non-regulatory boards. So not just for zoning, they're not just calling their zoning alternates associates. So for example, the Rail Trail Advisory Committee in Weston, I think there was a country club one, there was another trails, a town forest committee. So other just regular committees, and I say regular by meaning not influential in the regulatory permitting area, right? That's what I mean by just kind of a standard committee, not a committee that sets permits, and because there's different criteria for those and different implications, right? We get that. So so the conversation went well with the board, and we have 2 that want to move forward, 3 that want to move forward, and 2 that still don't necessarily support it. But the person that was on the fence is now willing to give it a shot, right? So we kind of have a little bit of leash to try this out and see if it works. And if it doesn't, it can end, and that's fine. So our next step is to draft the charter, which I've circulated for our discussion tonight. And I drafted also a policy for our discussion as a way of helping to put guardrails around what we're trying to prevent is abuse of the open meeting law and opening any doors that we don't want to open. Before this meeting, the select board had office hours. So I attended that to get clarification on how to approach this policy thing, because I don't know exactly how that would work. So I spoke with the 2 representatives there, and basically we're going to scratch the policy and not put that in place. They want us to take one step at a time, but that's the recommendation, is take one step at a time. And I said, the charge itself doesn't seem like a good place to start writing up people have to abide by the open meeting law. So we are going to try to put a footnote in the charge that says something to the effect, which I'll show on screen shortly, that we want the associate member to be, there can be no serial deliberation. So the associate member can't, can't discuss with a quorum in serial. So for example, Will can't talk to me, then Will talks to Isabel, and then Will talks to Tom. That in a way creates a serial deliberation amongst quorum, right, of 3 members. So we'll try to write something in like that and have the select board review it and see if that will help put the guardrails that we're trying to do in place. Because ultimately, we're not trying to get out of doing anything that needs to be done in the proper way. But we do want to move forward with this for the reasons that we've stated, and it does seem to be an option to certain committees, boards, and commissions in the state, in the Commonwealth, that it works. I do want to just share with the committee that if we move forward with our conversion from ad hoc to standing at town meeting, that there may be a warrant article put in place opposing our approach and our request to do this. So I just want the committee to be aware that if we do go to town meeting with a bylaw request, that we may have opposition in the form of a warrant article, and we'll be, have to defend that in the way that we will, or it will just go to vote. And I did separately invite, Mr. Hegarty to join us this evening to share his concerns, because I think we can really leverage his experience to help us to, create a situation that's going to work for everybody, because that's our ultimate objective. So I don't think he was able to join us, but obviously we're available to receive his feedback. So I'll stop there and take any questions or discussion before we jump to the document.
I have a quick question, and I think, Tim, you might know this, or somebody else. To put a warrant article at town meeting, do you need X amount of signatures, or do you just have to write one up?
Hmm.
I'm just curious about that, because, oh, there you go, Tim.
Tim,
He
you're
has his hand raised.
you should be
Okay,
able to talk.
So the story there is it depends. There are two ways to get an article onto the warrant for town meeting. The first is for the selectmen to agree to put an article
Okay,
into
let's
the
just say
warrant.
that's not it.
Well,
An
let me-
individual.
Let me just give both
Okay,
so
go
that
ahead.
everyone's on the same page, Tom. And sometimes, that will be done, by the selectmen, or sometimes the committee will propose it and be the sponsor. So there's a distinction between allowing it on the warrant and sponsoring. The second way to get an article onto the warrant is by citizens petition. And for a citizens petition, what happens is someone writes up exactly what you want. And then you go and you collect signatures. And there are two thresholds in terms of how many signatures you need. If you get enough signatures, you can actually force a special town meeting. Otherwise, your article goes on the next warrant. When it's done that way, it has to appear on the warrant exactly the way people sign for it. As citizens, you can amend it on the floor, but you can't change it once people start signing. I've done, actually, for the technology committee, I had both. I had both a citizens petition and one sponsored by the old committee, because we were a little bit of concern about how things might turn out. And eventually we got one. So that's the mechanics of it. The text is not different. It's just a question of how it gets there.
Got it. Thank
So
you.
in a citizen's petition, do you need just one signature?
No, you need more than one. I believe, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head anymore, but it's a fairly small number to get it on the warrant, and it's in the tens. But if you want to force a special town meeting, I think it's closer to a couple of hundred.
All right.
But
Okay.
we have people in town who live at the transfer station and are really good at collecting signatures.
Yeah.
So that part works.
All right, second question. Your scenario, Kat, about the serial quorum for a non-voting member. What's to say I can, being a voting member myself, why can't I go to Isabella, and to Sati to do the same thing? Would
That violates the open meeting law, Tom.
That does violate, yeah. Anyone can do anything, except we acknowledge a document that says we won't do that. And so I think in the case of an associate member, because they're not required by law, that might open a loophole. And the concern isn't so much about trails, but it's the precedent that it's going to set
Yeah.
for others.
I'm trying to understand where, again, for us, it doesn't matter. And I did watch the selectmen meeting, and it's like you said, most of it's precedent. If we do it for this, other people might take advantage of it. So I guess, what's bad about that?
Well, so let me take a stab at this, because I've been a couple of iterations. I didn't get to the selectmen's meeting. I was out of town and I haven't had a chance to review it. But serial deliberation is a problem. And the problem is, as the Attorney General sees it, that if 3 people on a committee, of 4 get in a room and talk about something, in the deep dark secret, you can conspire to do something, and sunshine is the best disinfectant, kind of thing. So then, people started saying, well, okay, so what happens if I say my opinion is this, and you write it in an email, and then you send it to your other committee members? Well, we actually had a case in Southborough where a selectman got the select board in trouble because he sent out an email that some interpreted as offering an opinion, and offering an opinion is part of deliberating, and deliberating, is setting policy, and that has to be done in public. The challenge with the associate members is I think a little bit interesting, because it's true that it's not really the associate member who's violating, anything. It's the people who listen. So, but the interesting thing is you have that sort of same problem, because, I could do that today. I could talk to 3 of you outside of the meeting, and there's nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes an issue is if, let's say I go to Kat and say, I talked to Tom, and Tom thinks that dogs should have free rein in all the meetings. And then I talked to Sharma, and he said, yeah, but if you do it for dogs, you have to do it for cats. Right. And then I went to Isabella, and she said, but goldfish. Right. And at this point, although none of you has individually done anything wrong, I've made something bad happen because I've communicated opinions in the same way that an email would have communicated opinions. The law can't touch me because I'm not a member of any committee, but you guys are in trouble because you listened.
Right.
And you don't know what I'm going to say when I start talking. So I think
we
that's
got
sort
in-
of the slippery slope that Jim is worried about.
So we got in trouble because we did not know that you talked to 2 other people. If you just talked to, like in your situation, if you just talked to me and never talked to any other members, there's no trouble.
Right. And there's no problem if I talk to all of you, as long as I don't act as a communications channel among you.
As long as you don't reference the conversation you had with me to another member.
As long as I don't disclose the content where the content is an opinion or forms a deliberation. And that's actually one of the reasons I choose not to serve on committees, is I can actually talk to people outside of meetings and get things done.
So
But I'm
Tim,
careful. And the concern, I think, is that if you have an associate member who feels like they're more part of the group, and yet, the group has to keep pushing them away outside of meetings, I think that's the concern that people would have.
So just to make sure I completely understand your situation with the cats, dogs, and goldfish. If you called me and you gave me that opinion, but then you called Sati and told him my opinion, that's where it gets into trouble.
Yes.
If
And
you
I'm
had
not in
this-
trouble.
I know, no, I'm just saying, I just want to
He
make
is
sure
in
I'm clear. The conversation you had with me is fine. You can have the same conversation with Sati, as long as you don't reference anything I say, that's fine.
Yes.
So one question though, but this conversation is, if it is not on record, right? I can make up something and say to somebody that, hey, I talked to him and this was his or her opinion. How do you verify that?
Well,
Well,
this is where it gets to be kind of challenging, and you don't want to be put under oath and interrogated about this kind of stuff. There are other interesting aspects to this. I mean, for example, where I've been trying to draft a bylaw for you, which is the other reason I stuck my hand up. You could all send me opinions, having, reviewed it and say what you think. And I could consolidate those into another document that comes back to another meeting. That's not an issue. The issue, is if I were to take those opinions and send them back and say, well, I've changed this because Isabella wanted the goldfish, or Sadi wanted the cats, or you wanted the dogs, or I'm not sure what Isabella wants, but it must be something important.
I get you. So understanding that, and that's the slippery slope, I think, Kat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the slippery slope that the people on the select board was questioning, is that conversation that Tim just said, that serial quorum. of consolidated
Serial
opinion-
deliberation. Yeah.
Serial deliberation.
Yep.
And that's with the designation as what are we designating as an associate member?
Yep.
A non-voting associate member.
Yep.
Is there another designation for their duties, or what we want them to do, or what they volunteered to do? Is instead of an associate member, I guess if we call it a volunteer member?
No, it doesn't matter what they are. If they're non-voting XXX, they are, this problem exists. So it doesn't
Okay,
matter what their
okay.
name is. It's just their role and what we're trying to carve around. And I did, just for the record, speak with the Massachusetts Attorney General, because I wanted to understand from their perspective if what we were trying to do is going to, be in conflict with anything. And she recommended that we speak with our general counsel, which we've done twice, and he doesn't have any concerns about this. And she did say, she pointed me to there was an open meeting law violation and a determination by the Massachusetts Attorney General that kind of details how this works for an associate member. And so now that's when the bell, went off, the light bulb went off, and I understood a little bit more. She said, as long as so my question was, can I have this associate member? Can we write it into the charge that the associate member does have to abide by open meeting law so that we can work around? And I did not get a no. She can't advise us because that's our town council's job. But my conversation was very positive. I told her what we're trying to achieve, and I didn't see, there wasn't anything that she said that we couldn't, get what we needed to done and preserve the spirit of the open meeting law. So I think if we can take a look at the what we have written up and try to.
Before we do that, you mentioned that there was a case that went in
Yep.
front of the Attorney General.
Yep. So
for
if
an
you go,
associate member, and what was it? I don't know if it's summarized, what was the situation and what was the ruling?
yep. So I'm going to direct you to, if you go to the open meeting law secretary, the Attorney General's website, you can look up all open meeting law violations by year
Mhm.
and number. So the number you want to look up is year 2013, number 32. And
Okay,
that's one that specifically relates to an associate member who
Okay.
was involved in a deliberation and their determination. So that will help you kind of understand.
Kat,
Um,
can I? So we used to have Tracy as a non-voting member. That time this thing didn't come up, right? We
Who?
used to have Tracy. We used to have Tracy, right?
Yeah,
as a
but
non-voting.
she wasn't real. Oh, you mean in the very beginning when she was
Yeah,
kind of in
yeah.
between? She was involved. She didn't have an official title, right? So she was more of like a volunteer who joined as a member of the public at that point, because she wasn't an official member. So she was helping with some of the transition.
Okay.
That would be more, she would be considered a member of the public in that case, a former Trails Committee member, but not a member. Yeah.
I mean, I think the problem I have with the whole conversation is that the
have a problem?
non-voting member, isn't the person who's on the hook or doing anything wrong, and you really can't constrain them, other than to say, you really should be aware that you shouldn't try to get other people in trouble. The burden is on those of you who are voting members to be sensitive to the issue and to remember, when you have to push people away and say, hey, wait a minute, we got to hold that off for a meeting.
And it's
And-
an honor system, just like it is with everybody right now who acknowledges the open meeting law, and every other board, commission, and committee that says, I won't do it. And we all need to agree to not do it, including and make our associate members, which the good news is our associate members are actually members of other committees, right? Will, you're a member of other committees, so you already have to be aware of open meeting law, and you've acknowledged your training and you do your certifications. And so is Tony, I think, just got appointed to the capital planning meeting committee. So that's just purely.
What's the consequence of violating it? Suppose this happens, somebody says something about the
Yeah.
conversation. So what's the consequence? I mean,
I don't
what hap-
actually know what happens when the Mass Attorney Generals, they make a determination that a violation has occurred. Tim, what is the violation? Do you get kicked off the committee? Do you get a slap on the wrist? Do you have to pay money?
Well, there's an escalating series of things that happen. And, it's the town primarily that's on the hook because you're acting for the town. I believe there are fines and the fines escalate. But, I think they're, from what I've read of these things, on a first violation, on an inadvertent sort of thing, they tend to be relatively lenient.
Yeah.
And, when you don't learn, and they've slapped you on the wrist, then they take out the boxing gloves and then they take off the gloves. It sort of goes up.
So in that case, we make that member walk. I mean, if that happens.
Well, but the thing, again, it's not the non-voting member who's the issue. It's you guys who are the issue, and he's basically, or she is the thing that provokes you to do something wrong.
Right.
And so I think it's worth thinking about, and I think it's worth having the conversation, but I don't think it's something you can legislate away.
Right.
And any more than you can legislate me away. And there are a lot of boards and committees who know that I'm a pain in the neck.
And I just don't understand why there's not, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
But there is a way.
Okay, so thank you very much, Tim. Super helpful. Is this a good transition time to look at the charge and see what we've got for text?
Sure.
Is everybody good? Okay, so do you see my screen? This short paragraph. So our existing charge as it stands now is the paragraph on the screen. Everybody familiar with it from earlier when I circulated it?
Mhm.
Okay, so our objective for this first step is to have the select board vote to approve of a different charge that includes associate members. So we're not looking to really reinvent the wheel. We want to add maybe some language to improve our charge, but any substantial changes that we want to make to our charge, we can do in the bylaw approach when we go to town meeting. So I was hoping that we could try to make this as simple and straightforward as possible to get to a yes and satisfy the guardrails that we want in place to ensure that people are following the law. Because the way the select board said they would, this is in a way a trial to see if it would work. And so we'd like to try to do that.
Going back to that, I don't want to be nitpicking, but you excluded breakneck, but should you include the open forest? We do maintain open forests.
Oh, you mean the town forest? So that the language, the mission is exclusive of Breakneck Hill is specific to the original charge. Can't touch that because Breakneck Hill is under the purview of Stewardship Committee. And the town forest, we help with the town forest, but we do not oversee the town forest. Even though we do projects in the town forest, it has trails. It's still under the purview of this Stewardship Committee. So I think that's where it stays for now. If we
Okay,
want to
so
change it,
the town forest is under the stewardship committee, not us,
correct. It's
Okay.
actually
which is fine,
Yeah.
fine, as long as someone is responsible for that, that's all I care.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is what I have. So you guys may have read it. If not, we can just take a look at it now and see what you think. And let me know when you're ready to discuss we can just start by paragraph.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you want to limit the non-voting associate member number. And I would say, you know, I would just say, and non-voting associate members.
Okay, that's a great question. Is there a problem if it's unlimited? It feels like that.
It doesn't
might-
get any worse.
Non-voting members, non-voting associate members as needed, then
Well, as
we-
agreed to by the committee and the appointing authority.
Mhm.
I think that's what I put in the bylaw draft. I mean, the problem with putting in a number is that first, it encourages people to want to fill that number. And second, you know, when you find the fourth person who you really want to have, now you're back to changing the charge again.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I limited it, I think, because I thought limiting it would make the select board happy because it wasn't too, there was some bounds to it, some boundaries so that it didn't feel unruly. I don't know if you guys can see the chat at this time. When I share screens, my chat feature, oh, there it is. Never mind.
there's no Q&A chat in my screen.
I found what I was looking for now. I'm looking for, thank you. I just want to make sure.
Kat, just to follow point on that, because as you said, in appointing authority, the appointing authority is a selectman. So I don't think they should have an issue with that. They have veto right, I guess.
Yeah.
With that, put it in there.
Okay, great. Okay, and then paragraph 2 is basically taken from the main charge, and I just added a few things to either clarify what an acronym was or a little bit more open to the entities we might work with. So it's only slight changes.
Yeah, I would delete as deemed necessary.
Okay.
It doesn't add anything.
And the other organizations that might be, for example, SOLF. So this year we partnered with SOLF on some property that the Route 85 trail, the Templeman Woods, Watkins Woods. So that did come out as to be real.
And you might want to, instead of say under the town's trail licensing agreements, under any town trail licensing agreements, because you want to deal with any future agreements as well as
Yes, I
what's
like
currently
it.
here.
Yep, thank you.
So you get rid of the apostrophe S there.
Great.
Use it under any town trail licensing agreement.
So that way, when you get when you get a licensing agreement from Isabel Incorporated, you have to tie her in here somehow. You know, you don't have to come back and change this. You know, the agreement shows up, it's covered.
And this next paragraph, the third one, is new to just kind of broaden our charge a little bit, because we don't just maintain trails, we do a little bit more than trail maintenance. I wanted to capture that.
That's a nice paragraph.
Okay. So
Did you want to do that, you know, in cooperation with recreation and others?
yes, just at the beginning here.
I'm trying to think about just where to put it. Or you could start, I guess you could start that way, or you could just make it this, will promote
Or
awareness.
just
of the-
about after social media with collaboration with other town.
I like that a lot.
or in coordination with other town boards, committees, and departments.
Or it could be not just town.
Okay,
With, yeah, because you could say
Other
like St.
organizations.
Mark's, yeah, other boards and organizations, commissions and organizations.
yeah, I use the term town entities to cover all the town stuff.
Okay.
With any, well, because I'm thinking we want to keep it open for St. Mark's and the Faith School
Yeah.
is what I'm
Yes.
thinking.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
what Cat has looks good.
Yeah.
Now, I know this is nitpicking. Other organizations, should we just limit that within our borders?
No,
No, it should be as far and wide as we can go.
Okay,
to
I'm
coordinate.
fine. I'm
If
fine.
you're okay with that, if the committee agrees with that, I think more is more.
you may want to deal with the Appalachian Trail Association or
Yep.
Or
Okay, I'm
Sudbury
just-
Valley trustees, you know, the trustees, for example, any number of AMC, BCT. Yeah, right. Okay, so are we good with this paragraph? Any changes or edits?
let's see. I'm not sure that you want to strive to promote. I think the committee will promote.
Yep.
I hate weasel words, except when you
Yeah.
need them.
I know. Thank you for your feedback.
So I need to look,
Okay.
scan it, copy.
And while also can be and
Where are you? Oh,
educate trail users about. And instead of designed to, you can just say that. Protect the watershed, reservoir, and wildlife environment.
Tim, what do you do for a living?
I'm an engineer.
Do
And
you write
language is,
technical documents?
yes, language is very important. And I guess I've so far managed to get 2 town bylaws done, and I did most of the drafting on those. The attorneys just decided that it was okay, so I have a little practice with this.
I think you have practice and passion.
Well, you know, if I become a pain in the neck, tell me to shut up and go away. I can
No,
do
no,
that
no,
too.
no, not at all, not at all. I mean, this is all good.
Tom's gonna stop.
Just like some of those things I would never pick out. That's why I ask.
Just joking. Okay, great. So this next piece is, I think I'm just noting that we're not indicating term lengths or any of that stuff. We can deal with that in the bylaw. And we don't want anything to conflict with, I think one of the concerns was if, you know, whatever town existing policies are for the terms, we just don't want to get involved if one is different than the general rules. So that's just all I meant by here. And so this footnote, and whether it's a footnote or not, I wasn't sure how we should do it. The first time we talk about, oh, actually it got messed up. So this footnote should be up here with associate members. I'll change it after we talk. But the first time we say associate members, I wanted to clarify. So this footnote is helping to identify how we can put the guardrails around the open meeting law. So take a read at this and let's talk.
Yeah, I would still recommend saying non-voting and not use associate members, but. Okay. All right. Oops,
I hear you. I just feel like non-voting is just such a negative starting word that I'd like something a little more positive, even though the definition of associate member is non-voting. Do we need to say it every time we say associate? Is it one word, associate / non-voting?
No, I would pick one. I would pick one or the other, but I mean, non-voting. I choose non-voting because it describes functionally what happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and-
internally, it makes me sad.
It shouldn't-
No,
it shouldn't- it-
No, I know I'm putting feelings where there aren't any intended, but I guess I'm also following suit with other towns, and they use this terminology. So another,
It's not the end of the universe, it's just
yeah,
an
no,
opinion.
no, I appreciate it.
You don't need the second participate.
Oh, participate in discussions and.
The
Yeah.
work of the committee.
Yeah, I gotta fix that sentence before. Doesn't may participate in discussions and work and participate. Oh, again, would you put there as a verb? May participate in discussions.
And in the work of.
Yeah,
the
that's-
committee at
that's fine.
discussion.
Yeah, I don't know what the associate member shall adhere to all town rules and regulations means.
I'm trying, yeah, so I'm basically, I don't know what other rules and regs that we have to follow, and I'm just trying to kind of point it out. If we think it's just fluff, we
I
can
mean,
take
I mean,
it
if
out.
you don't know, you can't tell them.
Well, I mean, I think eventually there's lots of rules and regs that are kind of not necessarily documented, but that you learn along the way. And one day the town might have a committee handbook that would defend those town rules. and regs.
Yeah, well,
For
that's
now-
been promised for at least 10 years that I know of.
Oh, really?
So
what-
associate members have to undergo the training that we go through?
That's what I'm
That's what this is
proposing.
saying.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
proposing they do.
Oh, okay.
And this, is going to the select board and they get to, because I spoke with the, during office hours just to get their sense. And I was like, I'm just going to stick something in here and you guys respond to it and adjust it as needed. But these are the guardrails I'm
Yeah.
trying to work with.
So associate members can't deliberate because they're not voting members. So what I think you're trying to say is,
I think you can remove all that stuff and basically you have to say that they have to take the same open meeting law. Because in the first paragraph, you pretty much told them what they can't do. And now you have to tell them what they must do, and that's the training.
I like that.
I think less is more here.
Yeah, what exactly?
Associate members must take the open meeting law and conflict of interest training. Must take the same open meeting law and conflict of interest training as voting members.
Yeah.
And abide by the same expectations.
Well, no, once they've taken the training, that covers it.
Right.
Training
Do you need to mention the no conflict of interest?
as voting members. We've got conflict of interest is there.
Okay,
Thank you.
In this case, the first part says what they can't do, no quorum, no nothing. And then the second paragraph, I think should help with some of the select board that don't like it, is saying that they have to take the same open meeting law and conflict of interest law.
Training as.
Training.
And if you want,
training.
you could add that voting members are responsible for ensuring that no serial deliberation occurs through associate members or others.
Is that in the training? You're pointing this out specifically.
I am, because it's been raised as an issue.
This is the core issue.
I know. I'm just,
Right.
I'm not saying, that it's bad. We are now pointing out a specific situation.
Well, I think, so I personally wouldn't have put it in, except for the fact that at various times, 3 selectmen and 1 town clerk have raised this as their objection. And
we're
so
trying to
it's an opportunity to respond and say,
Yeah.
look, this is where the responsibility lies. It isn't with the associate members.
So the only thing I would add to that is,
It's not-
okay, I understand it now because we had a conversation. But years from now, when people read that, it's like, okay, what is this no serial deliberation? What does it mean? Do I have training on it so I understand it?
That is in the open meeting law training. And
Okay.
It's not with, I don't
And-
think you want
okay.
with associate. I think you want via or through.
Do we want to reference that it's actually in the open meeting law training?
No, I don't
or-
think, you're
don't
right.
think-
Less is more.
Well, I
Okay.
don't mind that idea though. See open meeting law for clarification.
No,
As dictated in the open meeting law.
Tom was on the right track before. Less is more.
I love defining stuff. Very clear. I don't care if it's 5 more words, but okay, I'm with you.
All right, so, and then they can actually then reference, because it's basically referencing the training that we, signed up and took.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, I mean, I'm good with less is more there, and let them deliberate our heartache around that.
And for what it's worth, I've taken that training too,
Oh, yeah.
just for fun.
That's what you do for fun?
Well,
Knowledge is power, people.
actually, that was my strategy, Kat.
No, I appreciate that. So this is good. So I'm going to send this version to the select board, to Mr. Purple, to put in the package for review at the November 16th meeting. So we're not going to address the policy or any of that. That will not necessary now, per the office hours, which I'm glad I attended to get that insight.
Mhm.
It's really
Now, I know we're not swinging for the fence to change us from an ad hoc to a standing committee,
until
but-
the spring, but we are.
but this can happen. Okay, so this is actually a point of order, I guess. We make this, they vote on it, we get these associate members, all is good. Now we change from an ad hoc to a standing.
Yep.
Do we have to re-justify all these things?
We won't have to re-justify it. We'll have months of how it worked really well. Examples, which I had mentioned during the select board meeting. Hey, this will give us a couple months to try it out and see what's working, and incorporate whatever we've learned into our bylaw to make it better. So
Good point. I think that's a very good point, is if you accept this now, we have until the spring town meeting. If it doesn't work, you can dissolve it as we change to a standing committee versus an ad hoc.
Well, so this is the other thing I wanted to bring up with regards to the warrant article. I'm still waiting for feedback from the draft I circulated a couple of meetings ago.
yes,
The timeline is roughly that the warrant closes, I want to say December 23rd or somewhere around there.
Yep.
So we're down to maybe a month of being able to put together what you want.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to help if you want to help.
We do.
But we can't all do it at the last minute. I think
no.
this particular issue is, as I originally drafted it, I think I only had one sentence that was roughly equivalent to the second sentence here that says non-voting associate members is agreed to. But the rest of it we should work out. Now, one can amend things later, and the warrant doesn't get printed until I think it's going to be like late January for the March town meeting, assuming we hold the usual schedule. But I don't think you want to put it all off to the last minute.
No, we won't. I had to prioritize because I just happened to be one person of a committee.
I understand that it's.
But no, we'll get that right.
I mean, I think what you're doing is part of what has to happen, but the other part, there are two things I think that have to happen besides getting something in writing. One is the socializing bit, which means going in front of the not only the selectmen, but the other people who are going to be interested in this. Like, I think recreation will definitely be interested in this. The stewardship people, you should at least take a little bit of time and talk to them about it. You might want to run it by the Board of Health, just so that they're aware that you're promoting outdoor health and stuff. They tend to be really supportive when you do things. And so there's
try to get support now and socialize the idea now, so that when
we have a warrant article, that's
Right.
when I want to start, going out that way.
do we, how do we, other than talking to them and showing them what we're doing, how do they show their support other than voting for it? Do they do anything else? Like,
Well, there are a couple of things, and it sort of depends. I, in the past, have had other committees actually take a vote to say, we will support this article. We support the inclusion. We support it at town meeting. I haven't had to call in the chits, but I had them, on a slide. The following 8 boards
Okay.
and committees have, voted to support creating this committee,
that's what I was looking for. That's what you do.
And-
Thank you.
and sort of that helped. And some chose not to take a vote, but they're influential people, and so when people talk to them about it, then they're supportive, and that's important. And then the other thing that has a clock running on it is something that Tom brought up, which is if you want to have a backup plan that says we'll do a citizens petition in parallel, then there has to be enough time to gather the signatures and to submit it to the selectman's office so that it's there. You can always decide to indefinitely postpone it at town meeting, but you can't get it on the warrant after the warrant's closed.
Do you think we should do that?
I'm
Is
not
it-
sure.
Because that's a couple hundred signatures by 12/23.
Not hundreds, tens.
I
Oh,
can look up.
right.
I can look up the number.
What was
It's a
the
couple of hundred if you
oh,
wanted a
couple
special
hundred
town
for- it
meeting. We
was
don't need.
a
We don't need a
special
special
town
town meeting.
All right, so we
No.
could do tens and tens, and it has to be a physical signature, not an electronic one in the days.
It's a physical signature, and the usual place has been at the transfer station.
Yeah.
I think for the technology committee where I did that, the signatures were collected in like one weekend at the transfer station by
Mhm,
someone who's now a selectman and likes living living there and collecting signatures.
mhm.
Is Sam on board with this?
Sam,
I
is
think
the-
so, yes.
Am I allowed to say, yeah, I guess you could watch the meeting and find out he's a proponent. Is there a political reason not to do this? Does this, let me phrase this correctly. Does this create more animosity or difficulty doing anything by doing that?
Well, there's a risk, but there's also the risk of, not doing it and, having 3 of our new select people decide, well, no, we're not going to put this on the warrant, and then you have to wait a year.
I'm in favor almost immediately now because we don't have a slam dunk. This isn't one person was agnostic, so could easily be swayed one way or the other. So I feel like
I'm getting a little, are we talking about the non-voting or the ad?
The
Ad
standing
hoc.
committee, whatever it looks like.
standing
converting
committee.
from- Yeah.
So we're talking about the second part of this.
Yes.
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Have we got, I mean, I know Sam's, you're on the call here, but I think that's the easier of the two. Changing us from an ad hoc to a standing makes so much sense because otherwise we can dissolve ourselves. What is our
But-
charge? It's not an indefinite ad hoc.
Well, but it depends on what's in there, right? If what we put in there is not controversial, then it should be fairly straightforward,
Yes.
especially if we do the homework and socialize and get it to happen.
But the associate members will cause it to be.
I think that's in my mind, again, just my mind, I think that's the harder thing for anybody to swallow. I mean, we know the benefits, we know all the goodness of it, but I know the Board of Selectmen has a little reservation about the precedent. But I
Mhm.
don't think there's any precedent argument going from an ad hoc to a standing committee that's been around for 5 years.
Right, but there isn't except for the definition in the bylaw, which will include the associate members, which will then make it controversial.
I just
Right.
turned the ADA committee into the
Accessibility committee.
accessibility committee. It had been a standing committee since 1990. It had been an ad hoc committee since 1990 and really deserved to be a standing committee.
Yeah,
And in the process, we also added, that it gets a budget, its relationship to the boards and committees not under the Board of Selectmen and similar things to what I am suggesting you want to do here.
right.
So an advantage of having a citizens petition, in your back pocket is it shows support.
Right.
And you can always decide, up until the deadline not to submit it, but you can also tell the Board of Selectmen that you have it.
Right. And I think that's a good segue into, so we have a lot going on this winter, which is the grant. And so if we do this, I'm going to have to ask for some support from the committee members to be the legs on the ground and we're going to have to divide and conquer our tasks a little bit, which relates to number 10. Member roles and opportunities. So this might be one of those opportunities where, and I'll just kind of jump to that. So Tim, if you're comfortable, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. We have a lot to think about. We'll go ahead and get the bylaw back to you and we'll talk about it next meeting. I think we'll be prepared to kind of finalize it by then. And that will be in early, early December. So does that timeline work for what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, it would be nice if you just sent me the comments as soon as you have them, and then I can
Well,
come
no,
prepared.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I'll send you the comments as soon like this week, and then we'll meet as a committee to discuss the final draft in early December. Does that work?
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I know Isabel has to bounce quickly, but I'll just throw this out there. So one of the things I'd like to entertain moving forward is, I know I do a lot of talking during our committee meetings, and sometimes that I would like to get more people engaged in different activities so that it's not just me chatting. As I go through the minutes and I review the video, that's the impression I get. So I'd like to give more opportunities to others to kind of step up, stand up and do more if that's what you would like to do, but also ensure that that opportunity is extended to everybody. So for example, if we want to do and it sounds like doing a citizens petition might be a good backup plan, because I don't necessarily want to wait a year. And if our associate member opportunity doesn't move forward with our standing committee bylaw, then I'd like to have a backup plan. Does anyone have a thought around that other than what we've already said? Like, do you guys feel like that's a good backup plan for us a good plan B that we should move forward with?
I know this is going to be a negative thought, but you're talking about ad hoc to standing. I don't think, and this is something we probably have to socialize with the select board, is I don't think we should have a backup plan, because that says, that gives two messages. I guess that's where I'm thinking is, if we have a backup plan, is that the stick in the carrot scenario? I
Do we
think
have to spell out that we have a backup plan? Are we saying that we have a backup plan to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, they can
They're
hear
gonna
this
know.
meeting.
They're gonna know. Yeah.
Okay.
well,
So by the way, I pulled this up. It's 10 signatures for an article at the annual town meeting, and it's 100 registered, and they're both registered voters for us to call a special town meeting.
Yeah, we don't want
Yeah.
a special town
so
meeting.
don't want a
a
special town
warrant is
meeting.
pretty easy to do.
It's 10 people at the transfer station, and you get 20 in case someone turns out not to be a registered voter. Or
Right.
Okay.
I guess my initial thought is the backup plan is setting a negative vibe.
Can we be transparent about it and try
Yeah.
to take off the negative about it? It is going to be what people think it is, but we can just be really clear with them that, we are passionate about this, and we don't want to, create any political discourse, but we believe it so firmly that this should be the way we go, that we need a plan B, because anything can happen between now and then. And we've all lived that in different scenarios where we wish we had a plan B. So this isn't a reflection upon you. This is just a reflection upon our passion. Does that sound positive? No? Isabel, you're kind of quiet. Do you have any thoughts? You know how this stuff.
My personal feeling is that we have more than justified our existence, and we are very justified in asking that we are appointed as a standing committee. I don't think that's not saying we have a plan B. The worst they say is no, which brings us to plan B.
So you believe in plan B or no plan B?
I'm saying I don't think it's one or the other. I think we make the request that we be established as a standing committee. And I think we're in agreement that if they say no, that doesn't mean that we're all going to go away.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I think the strategy, would be that, it's the same language in both cases. That, a week or two before the warrant closes, if you don't have a position from the Board of Selectmen that you like, then you take the paperwork to the whatever gathering point you like, whether it's the transfer station or not. And then you submit it to the town clerk and the selectman's office. And if you do think you have everything in hand, you don't.
Okay, so we
Right,
have a little time to wait, you think, then we could do it in a hurry? Although I hate doing that. in a
Well, I
hurry.
mean,
Yeah,
10 people,
am
you've got
going
more than
to-
half on this call.
I am going to log off because I do have people waiting for me. I told them I'd be ready to kind of prep
Sorry
for
about
tomorrow.
that. Thank you,
Okay.
Isabel.
All right. I'll
Good
see you
night.
guys later.
Yeah,
Bye.
I'll circulate
Bye.
a time for next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay,
So unless I heard wrong, I think we go for the selectmen if they are not at least a unanimous or 4 out of 5 agreement that we can change to a standing committee. We do a signature petition just to have in our back pocket.
all right. So last time we did a poll with them, they were 5 out of 5.
So I don't think it's an issue. That's why I'm saying, let's don't make it an issue.
Okay, I just don't know if that 5 out of 5 still stays true if the associate members associated with the standing committee. They were 5
But-
out of 5 with a standing committee, period, not associate members.
But if we get the standing committee approved now, and we
Oh,
have history behind our backs,
We're not gonna get it approved now. We can't get it approved until town meeting.
for the non-voting,
So the associate members, we can get approved now.
that's what I'm saying. If we
Okay.
get the associates proven now and it's working out fine and there's no issue, then it should be a slam dunk for spring town meeting. If not, then we do the petition.
Okay, yeah, I'm cool with that then. Just letting it slide and I'll have faith.
It's
the
just my
deadline-
opinion. If everybody disagrees, that's fine.
The deadline, Tom, is December Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Because you can't get something into the Springtown meeting after the warrant closes.
Yeah, I think our biggest issue is just writing the warrant and the signatures should be easy.
Well,
So I
that-
think we-
that is, as far as I'm concerned, is done until you folks tell me what's wrong with it.
Right.
Okay,
So I think we could be pretty much nimble on that
okay.
Christmas Eve date.
Okay, that sounds good. So thank you for that. Okay, so the next, and I know we've gone quite over again, and I appreciate your patience. We'll kind of jump through this. I do have a meeting with Tim from Recreation tomorrow to talk about our budget. So the conversation is going to be, I think Recreation's prepared to move forward with a line item for trails. After attending the most recent select board meetings, there's, obvious more budget issues this year than there have been in the past. Each year there's always budget issues, but this year it's more, there's more pressure to not raise budgets, to slash budgets, to cut budgets and stuff like that. It's not the best year for the trails to go to the town and say, hey, can we have a budget? And if it's written into our bylaw, that's going to add a layer of, issue. It could add a layer of difficulty to getting it passed. So if the recreation department is open to including a line item for trails, I'm inclined, since it's our, we're trying to get established with a budget. It's been years, we've never had one. I'm inclined to, if they're open to our numbers, or some version of our numbers, I'm inclined to say yes to that rather than going after a separate town budget. I want the committee's feedback on that.
I would
What would
recommend
our,
against that. I would suggest that the argument you make is that the town has been spending the money anyway. We've not been transparent about it because it's been buried in recreation and other places. And making it an explicit budget, does the right thing. It's not increasing what the town is spending because you were spending it before. You're making it transparent and you're making the people who are making the decisions accountable for how it's spent instead of having it, off somewhere else. So-
Just as a matter of language, I would say we're putting more focus on it. Talking about buried budgets and making it transparent, maybe a little bit too much
Yeah. I appreciate
conspiracy theory going on there.
Well, I hear you, Will, but transparency is one of the buzzwords that's important to the advisory committee when they deal with finance and to the
Well,
selectmen.
okay, then.
There may be a
you know,
softer way
let's-
of using the word.
Well, let's say that we're increasing the transparency, not making it transparent, we're increasing it. There was no
Keith,
effort to hide it in the past,
agreed.
right?
Right. Okay.
And the other thing is, you know, I think looking at the long term, which is the way we've got to do the bylaw, you definitely want it there in the long term, and you don't want to have to change the bylaw once you get it passed.
Mhm.
So for those
Right,
reasons,
Okay.
I would certainly get support from recreation. I would certainly get them to say, you know, should the bylaw fail and we remain an ad hoc committee, you know, can we park it under your purview?
I still think we might need to park it under their purview because they don't want like committees like us to not be under a department. That's my understanding from the years of conversation with Brian, what is his title? The accountant.
Well, we have the town accountant, but
Yeah.
I mean, for years, the ADA committee had a budget in the $5,000 to $10,000 range that it was responsible for, and it was an ad hoc committee.
They weren't under a department?
Nope.
Well, love that information.
And in fact, they just spent about $40,000 on a townwide survey.
Mhm.
So
Which committee did they get that budget from? I understood an ad hoc cannot have a budgeted item.
well, but they do.
I know, I'm just
I mean,
saying, just because it's wrong doesn't mean we can copy it, I guess.
No, it's not wrong. There's no legal reason I'm aware of that prevents it.
Okay. Okay,
I'm not an
thank you very
attorney.
much, Tim. So I will take that to the to the other Tim and figure it out tomorrow. So I have on our screen here, we initially had drafted a budget with a bit more line items like t-shirts and things like that, Tom, you had mentioned. And so I think what we're trying to do is create a recurring budget. So there will be some one-time expenses that we might try to get covered under grants and stuff like that. So what I tried to do was slim this down to be more realistic into what might get passed, and to also cover our realistic annual costs, right? So I have it here, and these line items may change depending on the advice we get from Tim and the requirements that they fit in certain buckets. I don't exactly know all those details, but I want to put this up here for our discussion quickly. And let's see, the trail maintenance improvement and supplies, that's really low, and I just want to double check what I was thinking there.
Like it's missing a zero.
Yeah, okay, it's because I took out, so this budget detail, just jumping around, so the summary sums up what we have for detail. Obviously, our tool needs will be higher than $46, but we're not going to be buying tools every year. So we need to figure out how we can obtain a set of tools for the committee, and that will either be through grants or through approaching, say, DPW or another capital planning. I don't exactly know who we want to talk to about, would they be, open to sharing some of their budget for this reason. And if they split it up, it's not a big hit to any one budget. And I'm pretty sure they have small dollars they can part with for certain reasons, like just expendable cash.
Well, the capital threshold is about $10,000, so the capital committee won't be involved.
Okay.
I just had to replace, I lost a blade on a pole saw last week, and that was $20, so that's half your budget.
Well, like I said, this budget wasn't intended, it's not intended to be a tool budget, right? And I think what I was intending I took out some of the bigger cost items, because that's going to be either one-time cost or we're gonna have to use other money. I don't think the town's gonna pay like $300 a year to buy tools, and I don't think we need $300 per year to buy tools necessarily. Speaking of tools, I did pick up a lawnmower for trails. It was on the free recycling page. So someone was getting rid of it and they said it works, but it smokes. So my husband has some skills. So we picked it up just in case we can use that on some of our trails. Like we still need to be able to clear that, get clearance on that. But as we start to see things, this was Sati's original idea. We can't, as on behalf of the Trails Committee, ask for donations because it breaks the gift threshold, but we can as an individual find tools that are out there and then donate them to the committee. So I'm going to donate that lawnmower to the committee as an individual.
I don't know about any gift threshold. There is a threshold that says that as an individual, you can't accept, anything from the public, that might influence your vote.
Yeah.
But the committee,
I reached out. Yeah, I reached out to Tim Davis and he reached out to Mark Purple and he said the committee cannot ask for tools from, like, I wanted to approach recycling page and say, hey,
Okay, fine.
anybody getting, no, I would love for it to be different, Tim, but I tried the right way. I tried reaching out. I tried to get clarification. I was told, no, you can't do that.
Right. So I would say that this year you need $500 worth of tools that you will try to fund it via other means. But I would just put it on the budget. I mean, this is not a lot of money as from the town's point of view.
Yeah, but I've seen the discussions over the years, and $500 has been said no to. The $500 increase, they've said no. That's how little. I mean, that matter. That's a little number. So that's where I was trying to come from. So I hear you. We can increase our tool budget to something and
say it's only this year. This year you expect it's 500. Next year it's probably less, and you will search, for grants and whatever other opportunities.
In a year, you don't think you're going to get I'm going to get complete pushback on this in a year where like no one has budget and everyone's going to be asked to cut budget in order to ensure that property taxes aren't increased. I mean, I hear the argument.
Well, we hear that, and at the same time, we're adding another person to the police department for communications. We're adding a boat. And the other part is, no matter what you ask for, they're going to ask, can it be less? So you might as well go in for what you need.
Yeah.
Instead of, trying to negotiate upwards.
I was of the mindset, and I'd like the committee to weigh in because I usually do ask less than I need just as a practice, but I do kind of feel like this is our first time, so we want to be conservative. And then, just as we had to wait for a few years before we could actually get a budget, now it might actually happen. Starting small, building up. Is there any rhyme to that, approach?
As long as you list the tools that we need and the costs, that's it. And the only pushback that I can see if you do that, and that I would have the same pushback if I didn't see that, is the DPW willing to loan you that equipment?
I don't know if the DPW would have all of that equipment.
I know, I'm just saying, if we have a list, if we want whatever $300, $400, $500 worth of equipment for the one-time purchase, we list what they are, shovels, the big boy saw, like all that kind of stuff. And then the only pushback I would see, and we could probably do this beforehand, is these are the tools where, Miss Gallagher, we are requesting these tools. Is these tools that we can borrow from the DPW as needed? And if she says no, then when that question comes up, DPW said no. They're the only people that would have what we're looking for.
Right.
I think it's just a CYA, I guess.
Right. And there might be an opportunity to collaborate with other committees or commissions that have tools to do a kind of a shared, like stewardship might need tools from time to time, or, is there a way to kind of leverage several committees with the tools to make it?
In my mind, DPW should have all these tools that any committee can come in and borrow and sign out and return. If we don't return them, then we have to reimburse them. That's my own personal opinion. That's why we have a DPW. Why should everybody have their own? And then what are we gonna do with them? Who's gonna house them? How can I access them? I need them in emergency. I mean, you got a lot of.
Yep.
I don't know, that's just my opinion. DPW should be able to loan out and loan in tools, because most of the time we need them is on weekends and at nights when they don't use them.
So I would list what you need and let advisory be creative in terms of saying, but can't you borrow them? Or, can't you get a grant or do this?
Yeah.
If you don't say what you need, I guarantee you will not get anything that you
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
ask
You have to
for.
list them out. You have to list
Right.
exactly the tool.
I
And I would
agree.
love
I'm-
a.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was gonna say, I know you got a lawnmower and stuff. I would love I don't know if it even exists, a machine that can do a lot more of the cutting of the trails.
The brush cutter.
Yeah,
The brush cutter would help with what we have. You need chaps for that. It's a very specialized tool. You need training, and we're never going to get that because unless we have training, we're never going to get a chainsaw. We can't go through that
yeah, I
liability.
know.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So there'll be some things we can't do. But I guess I'm of the mindset that I don't want to show up at advisory with my hand out without having checked every box before I get to that door. I want to make sure I've already talked to DPW. I've already exhausted all of my options. And then I want to walk to advisory and have that information there. I think we fare better when we've done our homework. And so I agree with you, Tim. You don't get what you don't ask for, but I definitely don't want to wait for anyone to be creative on our behalf. I want to make sure that we've crossed those, and done it ahead of time if possible.
Right. And the last thing I'll say on this is put some money in for renting tools that you don't buy. I mean, I rented a brush cutter one year because the bamboo was out of control.
Mhm.
And, it cost me, $100 for a week.
Yeah. I'll talk to the council about the brush cutter, but I feel like that's a liability issue. And unless someone's going through training for that thing, I'm not going to recommend that anyone on the committee ever use a brush cutter. I think, you guys know these tools are some of them are dangerous, and that is a very dangerous tool. So I don't want to be, paranoid, but at the same time, I don't want to open up the committee or the town to liability. I don't think they want us using brush cutters without certifications.
Well, people need to be trained. I mean, I spent last week with a chainsaw.
Do you have chainsaw training?
Yes.
Okay.
You opened up the old Pandora's box there, Tim. We'll be signing you some things to cut down.
Wait, I want to see you show up at volunteer day.
Yeah.
No.
I have
Okay.
bright orange chaps and the whole bit. So
Yeah. Points well taken, though. So thank you for your feedback on that. So our next topic quickly is the education skills building. So this is to attend really, some workshops that might happen. DCR has a conference every 2 years. It's low registration cost. There's an American Trails annual membership. They offer a lot of great website webinars and things like that we could partake in, and then some miscellaneous dollars. What I took out of here, which I think is important, is I took out the International Trails Symposium. I attended it back in 2019. It's a big conference. It costs lots of money to go to, like upwards of, I think the registration was like maybe $500, and I did get recreation to pay for that 1 year. But after attending it, I realized it is a huge, next year it's in Nevada, for example. I'm just not so sure that it's worth, and the benefit, I got some benefit out of the workshops, the training workshops for sure, but the I don't know if it's going to benefit us to attend every other year for $1,000.
yeah, those kinds of things tend to be marketing opportunities for the vendors who pay to be there.
Yeah, it was good. There were some really good sessions. I got a lot out of that, but I'm not sure it's something we want to put $1,000. I can't justify $1,000 cost every 2 years for that. Personally, my heart's not in
Is
it.
that something where you can get minutes or copies of presentations or online access?
We might be able to get copies of presentations, which would be good for the educational piece. The hands-on workshop was by far the most valuable I took from that. So you wouldn't get that, but we can get that locally in different ways. So
Well, I'm just thinking you might want to budget for, sometimes they charge for proceedings of a symposium.
Yeah. Maybe purchase the material. Okay, that's a good idea. I can look into that. So any other thoughts come up in this topic? Okay, and the next was maps and signage. So trail markers, we've had a little bit of discussion about this. We had some Southborough Trails Committee markers, but we kind of talked about that. And I don't know if you guys feel any different than we initially did, but having a Southborough Trails Committee trail marker was a good idea initially, but I don't know that it makes a lot of sense because we typically want to mark the trails with the trail name. And so we're not really looking to mark everything with Southborough Trails Committee. So it's either going to be Burroughs Loop, which we have. So trail markers, I put some money in here because we could use something sometime. So that's why that's there. Interpretive signage comes up from time to time, needing, it does. And then trailhead maps. And that's not going to be printed maps. That's more, actually, that's a good point. Do I have anything in here on Heritage Day? Oh, it's next. Yeah. So trail maps would be more like the town forest needs a map board at one of the trailheads. So that kind of thing, or something that goes up on the kiosks. That's what. Any
Well,
thoughts?
we can put QR codes up. People go
Yeah.
walking with their smartphones now, so.
Well, yeah, so this isn't printed maps. So I agree with you, Tim, we want to be more green. This is more like a 11 by 17 or a 2 by 3 that goes up on a board permanently, at a trailhead. So that's kind of what that means. Any other thoughts on that?
Nope, that's good.
Okay, and then outreach and promotion. So Heritage Day, that's the registration fee, Earth Day sponsorship, website domain name, and Bay Circuit Trail Alliance membership and t-shirts. So that I don't really have printing under here. And I think, oh, here it is, administration printing. That's good. And permits, permitting as needed. So the permitting, for example, the NOI legal fee that we just went through, Tim was gracious enough to cover the cost. I think it was $75 to advertise in papers. So that's what that means. So what I did was under this outreach and promotion, that t-shirt thing, that's not going to be an ongoing fee. So I didn't want that in the charge, in the cost of it. So it's really just going to be boiled down to this $215. And if we want to buy t-shirts, we can either have some sort of grant that helps pay for that kind of stuff
Or the Friends of Recreation.
Or the Friends of Trails.
Well,
We don't have a
any
Friends of Trails, but
We're
Friends of
not-
Recreation, Gobble Wobble is a big moneymaker.
Yeah. So we might find a creative way of sourcing that, but I was hoping as a way of cutting numbers that we just don't include that in there. And then the cost for printing and such, it just happens every year. We need a little bit of something. So that's where it comes down to. This is the one-time expenses. And then this is the annual estimated annual expenditure. So I think I estimated up at 1,500.
That's good.
So I might be able to, it might go a little higher if we add some tool cost in there, but I'm going to keep it under, it might go to 1,750 or something like that. Is that a good enough
Yes.
target? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would on that page have the one-time expenses for this year.
Okay. Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And quickly moving past to the next is, so this next piece is very easy. Actually, the rest of it's going to be just a few minutes. So Peninsula Trail, we met with conservation. So thank you, Tom, for all your help pulling that NOI together. That they agreed to the notice of intent. It's good for 3 years. And so that is for the fencing on the riser shaft that's within a 20-foot buffer. So that was just a really smooth hearing. There were no big objections. And so we got that. And that's going to help. We'll have to note that in the grant application. And so the Mass Trails grant is open now. And so now we need to get really serious about how we're going to be structuring that. The deadline is February 1st. We need to get letters of support in place. We need to get a lot of different things. So our next meeting, I'm going to ask us to do some homework, review the materials, and come loaded with some ideas of what we need. And maybe we do some assignments. I can put a lot of effort in this, but this kind of goes into, again, number 10, member roles and opportunities. I want other people to have more of an opportunity. So I won't go into it much now, but I'm going to plant the seeds. Start to think about what you want to bring to trails. Can we have someone like we have Adopt a Trail program for volunteers to kind of see what the trails are doing, but that program is kind of, as it's a little spotty for coverage. So do each of us assign ourselves a set of trails that we have to look at each month, and then we come to the meeting and report? So we have a trails maintenance report, and each of us has a section that we report on, right? Just like Tom's kind of taken over in a way the fishing line receptacles, not assigning that to you, but you've done a great job of maintaining those and looking at them and making sure the fishing line gets recycled, so that kind of thing. So, and Bella, what would you like to do? You know, your section of trail maybe is Ward Road. I think you're, you know, out there a lot. And is there something else that you might want to do? Do we have a social media bug? Does someone really love social media and want to be getting more involved in posting, so we have regular posts, so that doesn't just fall on me? And how do we incorporate the non-social media folks? Like, how do do we want more trail announcements? We don't want to over announce, but do we have monthly updates or quarterly updates? I haven't even thought of that. We send out quarterly updates. This is what's going on with trails, and we send that through the website. And Sati, what would you like to do? Is there something you've been thinking about that you want to kind of contribute, so that each time we come to a committee meeting, and then our associate members, Will, you and Tony, what would you like to contribute? How would you like to contribute? What do you want to come to the committee and share? So that way the committee is not just Kat talking during the meetings, and you guys feel more engaged and have more ownership over different aspects of it. So I'll stop and let you kind of give any feedback you have. We don't have to close the conversation, but I'd like to get some thoughts if you have them.
Love the idea. I'll just start
Yeah.
off with that. I think that's a great idea, and I love the idea of we'll call it members report. I think the Board of Selectmen called board reports. I think we should divide and conquer, especially the trails. And like I said, when you say report on the maintenance on them, I think we should also put a little skin in the game that we're kind of like responsible to do the easy stuff. When it's a big stuff, then we as a committee assign resources to do it. Like the one I call it Secret Island, but a lot of trees always fall down there. We need more of the committee and volunteers to help cut down trees. But I think that's a very good idea about owning some of the trees. And when I say put skin in the game, that's your responsibility. Hopefully you frequent it, trim it back, kind of like take your responsibility for it. And if you need help, just don't do everything yourself, and then bring it on to the committee for additional members to help out.
I like that.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
And like you said, do the divide and conquer the different things.
Yeah,
I'm not good in social media. If other people
That's
are,
okay.
that's great.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm a follower of social media, so keeping the content fresh or frequent is a big thing.
Yeah.
I personally don't have a talent for that, but I could collect the fishing line.
I can take up my favorite trail. I mean,
Yep.
take up
Facebook.
that one, the BLT.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I would also do that as well.
Great. Yeah, and just to your point, Tom, there are some sections that will need a lot more maintenance than other sections. So we definitely don't. I like your suggestion of going out with a pair of loppers and just doing, some small stuff, but there are some that will require help, and I don't want to overburden folks. And it's fun.
And that
to
was my
get
point.
together and
You're not
work.
alone if it's a big job.
Yeah, exactly. But it is easy to kind of just lop as you go.
But we have a couple of Q&A I just noticed.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, that's from you, Tim.
I just sent you guys the link to the
yeah.
AG opinion that Kat mentioned.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Save you the trouble of looking it up.
Thank you.
So I don't want to leave Bella out. Did you have any thoughts on Bella? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, it's okay. I agree with everything. I think that's great, especially like to divide and conquer, like the trails that we like to hike the most. Like if we see something, then we can point that out the next meeting or like send an email. I'd be happy to take over like social media responsibility too.
Ooh, great.
Yeah, I could definitely do that as well.
That'd be awesome. I think you have some map skills that I want to tap to at another meeting. We can talk about how you can improve some of what we have going on. And then You know, one idea is as we're working through the grant, we're going to need letters of support from different organizations, and it might be something in the next meeting we assign to each of us to reach out. Those are going to have to move pretty quickly because of our timing and such, but let's figure out a great plan for that.
Talking about the grant, I was just thinking, is the trails come under infrastructure? Because there'll be like infrastructure.
Yeah,
bill
so the
that will be-
ARPA money, there are some, I think there's some opportunities there. It's a lot to weed through. So yeah, eyes open and peeled, and that webinar that I had attended at the end of September had some good ideas, which I have to dig out the slides to take advantage of. Which actually I should just circulate those slides so that everyone has access to that. So thank you for considering that, and we'll talk more next. And then I mentioned a little bit about the choke fund grant. The timing has shifted a little bit. We'll talk more about that next. And I think our next agenda is just to next meeting. So we are in November. We're going to meet with the Board of Selectmen on the 16th. I hope the idea is that they would vote to approve the associate members. That's the idea, unless something happens. So are we open to meeting? We might need, and I'm just going to preface this, we might need to meet a couple times in December to get our stuff together and ready for the grant. So I just want to prepare us. We can do that all in advance of the holidays. I don't want to go into the last 2 weeks of December because I want to hibernate during those 2 weeks and just pretend I'm not in the committee. I'm not at work.
Mm.
Just like
I have a problem because first half month I'll not be around.
the first half of the month. You're what?
Yeah, I'll not be around.
You're
Of
not gonna be
December?
Yeah.
Of December?
Yeah, if we can meet like late October, late November maybe.
Okay.
If it is
So we
possible.
might, so what we can do is, how is the week of November 29th for people? And Sati, are you like here the 29th and the 30th and the 1st, or the 1st you're out?
30th
Is it?
evening I'll be out.
Okay. So would Monday the 29th be an opportunity?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. How does that work right now for folks?
Okay, so I'm looking at my calendar. So the 16th, I'm just thinking of activities.
Yep.
The 16th, the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
So our first thing is to get that feedback about the associate members and deal with it, right?
Yep.
And then what's our next major deadlines after that?
We've got to get the warrant article sorted out.
Warrant article, because we need that by the 24th of December.
Well, we
So
need in advance of that. So
I know, I'm just saying, I mean,
You
that's
need
the
advance,
deadline.
and I think Sati wants to be a part of that. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
really saying we only have a couple of weeks.
yeah, so the 29th would be ideal if we could wrap.
I'm thinking about the 23rd, if we want to have a meeting with a few options on it.
Sure.
One is the feedback from the selectmen. We can have just 2 items on the agenda on the 23rd. Sati's going to be out on the 30th.
Okay, that might work out really well, because by then maybe the Eagle Scout has some update on the project, because I'm just not sure how we're approaching winter, so I'm not sure how we're going to build a trail before Christmas.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I'm just thinking
23rd.
23rd, we can all be here. We can find out with the selectmen. And we got a couple of deadline things we have to get done. That's why
Okay.
I don't.
How was
have-
the 23rd for Bella and Sati and Will?
Yep,
Works for
31,
me.
23rd is fine.
Okay.
That'll
16th.
be fun.
Okay, great.
I also just have a clarifying question. Do we all have to be at the Board of Selectmen meeting next
No.
Tuesday?
No, no.
Okay.
No, you can watch after, or you can watch during, or whatever you like to do. Yeah, but okay, so the 23rd at 6:30. And do we want to go ahead and say we want to do another one on the 29th?
To do what? I guess, what's the 29th? What's the agenda?
Well, if we have the bylaw wrapped up at the 23rd, we have grant stuff, real heavy lift on grant stuff. So
All right,
we
then
could
let's have
definitely-
29th would be just about the grant.
Well, it might be the grant, and I have to leave room for the Eagle Scout project. And the budget, like that might come up. Those 2 topics might come up.
All
I
right.
can stay quiet on everything else. Except for the minutes, we have to approve the minutes.
All right.
So can we do, I mean, little bit early then? I mean, if you want, I mean, 5:30 or 6 maybe.
Oh, is that better? How does that work? for
Oh,
folks?
yeah, so no, I will have problem. No, I cannot because I say this time is good. So
Okay. I see.
because, I'm sorry, because the thing is that I have 2 days in office and just Monday and Friday.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So it's a lot, yeah. Okay, so 29th, 6:30 again, and everyone said yay to that, 2 days?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm
this
gonna
is
go,
fine.
I'm gonna go ahead and reserve the rooms. They get, it's competitive and stuff. Wanted just to note on the members report that we have to be very specific on the agenda, that I can't just say members report. That's an open meeting. It can be an open meeting law in violation. It can be interpreted as that. The agenda has to have specific items. So if that member knows what or she is going to report on, that member should tell me and I'll put that item on the agenda. So it has to be very specific. Okay. So it's, so folks who are wanting to attend for public are really aware of everything that's going to be discussed at that meeting. So Jim Hegarty specifically shared earlier this year, get rid of anything that says general report without specifics underneath it, because it does violate. So it's all for transparency purposes, but we can still make that work. Awesome. Thank you for hanging in there. I'm so sorry we went over, but really good stuff. And thank you, Tim, for all of your contributions. We really appreciate it. You're honorary member, and I'm not going to say that again. But
I'm definitely not a member because I don't want to get involved in
You're
the
not a
in the legal
member.
bit, but
I misspoke.
I'm sorry
completely.
if I extended things, but
No, it's a good conversation. It's important, and we appreciate the guidance. We're kind of a little bit like a fish flopping around out of water. So
the
does
one
no
thing
one
I
want to?
would do in terms of the 29th is there might still be a round of follow-up on the warrant article, and that's probably your chance to have a final decision on, do you want to have Plan B activated?
All right, got it.
In terms of planning your agenda, think about that. Hopefully it's not a long conversation, but
Yep, got it. Thank you very much. And so does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Tom.
So
So
moved?
be it.
Okay,
I
so
second it.
who so beed it first? That was
Second.
Sati. And who seconded it?
I second it.
Thank you, Bella. All right, and all in favor, when I call your name, please say yay or nay. Tom McCoolier,
Yay.
Satyendra Sharma,
Yay.
Bella Bogdan,
Yay.
Kat McKee, yay. Great, we adjourn at 8:22 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.